I want to start with a bridge. Not a grand one. Not a famous one. A small iron footbridge in a park in South London, the kind you'd cross without a second thought. It sits in Burgess Park, in Camberwell. Cyclists ride over it. Dog walkers cross it. And almost none of them ever ask the obvious question. Because this bridge crosses nothing. There is no river beneath it. No canal. No road. Just grass on one side, and grass on the other. The locals have a name for it. They call it the bridge to nowhere. Now, there is an answer to why it's there, and it's a good one. The bridge was built in 1906 to cross the Grand Surrey Canal, a real waterway that was later drained, filled in, and forgotten. I want to be honest about that from the start. The bridge to nowhere is not a mystery. It's a leftover. But it stayed with me. Because a bridge is a permanent, expensive thing. And this one now serves no purpose at all. It is a monument to a waterway that someone decided should simply cease to exist. And once you notice one of those, you start noticing others. And the pattern they form is much stranger than a single bridge in a London park. If you've been following this series, you'll know we've been looking at what I've been calling the closing period. That compressed stretch of time, roughly 1850 to 1950, when a great many old things were quietly shut down. Forests reclassified. Buildings sealed. And waterways, thousands of them, drained, buried, and erased. This is about the canals. Specifically, the ones that go nowhere. And the question underneath all of it, why did the world spend centuries building an enormous network of waterways, and then, in the span of a few decades, decide to bury almost all of it? Let me give you the pattern, and let me be honest about where it's solid and where it isn't. Start with what's verifiable, because it's remarkable enough on its own. Beneath and across the modern world, there is a vast ghost network of canals. Not a few. Thousands of miles of them. Drained, filled, paved over, forgotten. In Manchester, there's a canal called the Manchester and Salford Junction Canal. It was opened in 1839, and abandoned by 1922. Its ends were sealed. Parts of it were buried 25 feet underground, drained, and turned into tunnels beneath the city's warehouses. You can still find the entrances. Most people who walk above it have no idea it's there. In Milan, a city the world associates with fashion and cathedrals, there is an entire system of canals, the Navigli, dating back to the 12th century. Leonardo da Vinci himself worked on them. And in the 20th century, most of them were simply covered over. Paved. Hidden beneath the streets. A medieval water network, buried under a modern city, still down there in the dark. This is the first thing that doesn't sit right. These were not small projects. Canals are among the most expensive, most labor-intensive things a society can build. You do not dig a canal by accident. Every mile of it represents enormous human effort. And yet, across the world, in roughly the same window of time, that effort was systematically undone. Buried. As if it had never mattered at all. The official explanation is simple, and I'll give it its due. The railways came. Trains were faster than barges, so canals became obsolete, fell into disrepair, and were filled in for safety and sanitation. That's the story. And for many canals, it's probably true. But here's where the story starts to thin. Because some of these canals were not abandoned after the railways. Some of them were never finished in the first place. And the reasons given for stopping don't always add up. In the west of Ireland, near the village of Tsone, there is a canal. It was a serious undertaking, 3 stone locks, a channel cut through 6 kilometers of solid rock. Enormous labor. And then, near completion, the entire project was simply stopped and abandoned. The official reason was that it had become too expensive, and that railways had made it redundant. But the local memory tells a different story. The people who lived there said the engineers had failed to account for the ground itself. That the whole region sits on cavernous limestone. And that when they finally removed the dams and let the water in, the water vanished. It drained straight down through fissures in the canal bed and disappeared into the earth. Think about that. They cut a canal through 6 kilometers of solid rock. And when they filled it, the water simply drained away into the ground beneath it, as if the earth below was hollow. Now, that's one canal. One story. Easy to set aside. A quirk of geology. But the canals that lead nowhere, that drain into nothing, that were sealed and buried and cut off, they accumulate. And this is the part one want to be careful about, because here I leave the firm ground of documented history and step onto something softer. There are researchers, and I want to be honest that much of this is fringe, and I am not presenting it as established fact, who have spent years mapping abandoned canals across North America. Not the famous ones. The strange ones. Channels that branch off in every direction, that run for miles and then simply stop. That connect nothing to nothing. Waterways with no clear purpose, no clear origin, and no place in the accepted history of the continent. I can't verify most of these claims. Some of them fall apart under scrutiny. But the ones that don't, the documented, mappable, physically real canals that genuinely do not fit the story we've been told, those are enough. Because you only need a few. You only need a handful of real waterways that lead nowhere and were built by no one we can name to start asking the real question. And the real question, as always in this series, isn't about any single canal. It's about the coordination. Because the burying of the world's waterways clusters in the same narrow window of time, across places that had no reason to coordinate. Manchester. Milan. London. Ireland. North America. Different countries, different governments, different decades, all reaching the same conclusion at roughly the same moment. Drain it. Bury it. Pave it over. Let it be forgotten. The official explanation is, again, that ideas travel. The railway made canals obsolete everywhere, so everywhere filled them in. And that's reasonable. Ideas do move. But it produces the same synchronization we keep running into. Rival nations, separated by oceans, all deciding within the same few decades to erase one of the most expensive things their ancestors ever built. Not to preserve it. Not to repurpose it. To bury it, 25 feet down, and pave a city on top. That's the coordination problem. And I don't have an explanation for it that fully satisfies me. Let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying every filled-in canal is a conspiracy. Most of them are exactly what you're told, obsolete infrastructure, filled in for safety when the barges stopped coming. I believe that. The bridge to nowhere in Camberwell is just a leftover. Probably. But some of these waterways, the ones that were never finished, that drain into hollow ground, that branch off to nowhere and connect nothing to nothing, some of them appear to be the remnants of something larger. A network. A system that once did something we no longer understand. Built by hands we can't name, for a purpose that was buried along with the channels themselves. And that brings me to the question that actually keeps me up. Not who dug these canals. Not why they stopped. Those matter, but they're not the one. The one is simpler. If you found the pieces of a vast, ancient network, a system of waterways spanning continents, most of it now drained and buried and cut into meaningless fragments, how would you even recognize it? You wouldn't see a network. You'd see a canal in Ireland that failed. A buried tunnel under Manchester. A bridge to nowhere in a London park. Disconnected oddities. Isolated leftovers. Each one with its own tidy local explanation. You would only see the system if you could lay all the fragments on a single map at once. And no one ever does. Because each piece belongs to a different city, a different country, a different story. The network was not just buried. It was divided. Cut into pieces small enough that no single piece raises a question. Here is what we know for certain. Thousands of miles of canals were drained, buried, and forgotten across the world within roughly a century. That is documented. Some of them were sealed and paved over while still intact, 25 feet beneath modern streets. That is on record. Some were never finished, abandoned for reasons that the people who lived there never fully believed. That is in the local memory. And the ground beneath some of them appears to be hollow. Each of these facts alone is a curiosity. Together, they are the outline of something. A shape we can almost see, if we could only look at all of it at once. The people who cross the bridge in Camberwell see a bridge over nothing. A small oddity in a quiet park. They do not see what it was built to cross. And they do not see the thousands of other pieces, scattered across the world, that were once, maybe, all part of the same thing. If you want to know what other pieces of that network are still down there, and what was found in the ones that were opened, the next chapter is waiting for you. But first, one question. If there is a buried network beneath the world, cut into pieces and paved over a century ago, would you want them to dig it back up? Or are some things buried for a reason? Tell me below. I read every one.